birth story. My second kid, tiny baby, still pretty tiny baby. I don't even know where to start. Well, okay, so it was 2 days before my due date. I had an appointment with my doctor, and she was like, you want to do a cervix check? I was like, okay. And so she did that, and I think I was like 4 dilated, but like not effaced, like 25% effaced, something like that, which, you know, it doesn't really mean much of anything unless you're like 10 centimeters, 100% effaced, which like the baby's coming out at that point, right? But yeah, I mean, you can go from 2 and 50%, and then an hour later, oh my God, you got to get to the hospital, you're in active labor, or it can be days, you know, it's kind of all over the place. But yeah, so she was like, well, that's where you're at. Do you want me to do a sweep? And I was like, yeah, do it. I want this baby out. I'm so ready. The 3rd trimester was so shitty. I was just lots of pain and very uncomfortable, and yeah, it really took a toll on me. So she's like, okay, you know, typically you'll go into labor within like 48 hours, something like that. She's like, I'm going to be there Monday, so, you know, try to hold out till Monday. Well, spoiler, that did not happen. So that night, again, this is 2 days before due date, did I try to go to sleep? Oh gosh. No, I think I went to sleep, and then I woke up and my hands, the palms of my hands and the bottoms of my feet were really itchy. And for those of you who've been pregnant or are currently pregnant, you're probably like, oh no, that's not good. And it's not good. It's a sign of cholestasis, which is a liver issue that can happen while you're pregnant. It typically goes away once you give birth, but it can be pretty serious. So typically what they would do is they would do some sort of liver test. I forgot exactly what it is, what exactly it's testing for, but it takes 5 to 7 days to get the results back. I'm pretty much due, right? My due date is in, you know, less than 48 hours. So anyway, I'm having this itchy thing. I call the advice nurse. This was around like 7 or 8 in the morning, something like that. So, you know, I'm kind of like, okay, thinking like, I'll probably go and they'll test something and everything will be fine. Because I don't know at this point that it takes 5 to 7 days to get the results back. Yeah, so we get ready. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take a shower, you know, whatever. I'll get everything packed just in case. So we go up there, I go to L&D, I get checked in. She does a stress test, what is it called? They do one of those because that can be one of the problems with cholestasis. It can be stressful for the baby. So I'm laying there, they do one of those, everything's fine. They also do a liver test, a different one, because again, they couldn't do the full one. And yeah, it's a little bit elevated. So she's like, you should stay. I was really surprised. I thought for sure nothing was really going to be wrong. I don't know why I thought that. I just did. And I thought I was going to be sent home. So it's weird because again, I wanted to give birth, but I just wasn't ready yet. I don't know. I just didn't think it would be that soon. I really was hoping I'd hold out till Monday for some reason. I don't know. I don't even care who delivers me. Honestly, I wasn't really that like, yeah, I need my doctor. I don't care. It's weird. You're weird when you're pregnant. So I go out, you know, I tell my partner, I tell toddler, you know, they don't know what's going on. So I get sent to the delivery room, right? Which is huge and, you know, pretty nice. So I'm trying to think, you know, a lot of things are very, very similar to the first time. So actual labor took almost like 10 minutes, exactly like the first time, just 10 minutes of actual pushing, right? I think the entire process took about the same amount of time. I want to say like 12 to 13 hours, something like that. I was GBS positive again, so I had to have penicillin in my IV. I mentioned, I think in my other birth story or somewhere on here in some video, I mentioned that the penicillin burned so incredibly bad. It was the most painful part with my first kid during labor and delivery. It was by far the most painful part. It just burned all the way up my arm. Now, when I went to my prenatal appointments for this baby, for tiny baby, in fact, my very first appointment with the nurse practitioner, I told her that and she was like, it's not supposed to do that. Like basically, you had a bad nurse. And some other women I talked to as well, my doctor and I think another nurse, they were kind of like, it's not supposed to be like that. And so then I'm in L&D and I tell, like I kind of make it known, like, hey, is there a way we can make this like not hurt? And the nurse is like, oh yeah, it's not going to hurt. She was like, you know, basically she said they kind of just pushed it in real quick instead of kind of flooding it with the saline or something like that, doing something so that it's not just all going in right away. And making this awful, fire sensation on my arm. She's like, yeah, it's not going to hurt. I'm still like skeptical at this point, but holy shit, I did not feel anything. It was amazing. So that was the first thing that was different and much better. And obviously the cholestasis thing, which they did do another test at some point, and it was still elevated, not very much though, so they weren't super concerned, but you got to be careful. And I was already almost due anyway, so it was like, you might as well stay in the hospital and we'll go ahead and induce, which I did last time as well. I was induced as well, except then it was for high blood pressure. I didn't have a high blood pressure at all this time. So anyway, got the penicillin, also got the Pitocin at some point, and I also got the epidural, which I was a little bit worried about because they also checked my platelets, which were low, and if they are low enough, you essentially cannot get an epidural. So I was like, oh my God. So they were like, okay, we're going to test again. If they're super low, sorry. If they're not, all right, you're good to go. Luckily they were not. So I got the epidural. It actually kind of hurt going in on one side. Yeah, it felt real bad. And she kind of had to push it around, and ooh, it did not feel good. But once it kicked in, it was great. I don't understand how they're able to do it. It's like you're numb, but I can still like move my legs and whatnot, and I can still push, which I don't understand how. Like I'm so numb down there. I can't feel any pain, but I can still push. It is amazing. Medicine is amazing. I got the epidural. I'm laying in the bed. My nurses are great. Now I have the night nurse at this point, and she's great. All the nurses were just lovely. And so I'm just kind of hanging out. My nurse is like, okay, let's move you over to the other side just to make sure that the epidural is like evenly dispersed, And so she moves me over to my right side, and the baby's heart rate immediately drops to like 40, which is not good. It was at like 140 to 150, right? And so she does this thing that professionals do when something is not right, but they're professionals, so they're not going to go, oh my God, holy shit, turn over, get to the other side. So she looks at the monitor, her face just kind of changes, she just gets that look like, okay, shit might be going down. So I'm just laying there like, oh my God, what's happening? So, it felt really long. It was only like 30 seconds really, because then she's like, okay, we're going to move you over, get on your back again. I get on my back and immediately heart rate goes up again. It's like, okay, baby doesn't like that side. So she calls the doctor comes in and she's like, okay, well, everything seems fine right now. She's like, I'm watching it from, wherever she's hanging out in her little booth or office or something. And she's like, yeah, everything seems fine now. So she goes out. It just randomly, sometimes when I move, sometimes it's my left side, sometimes it's just random. Again, the heart rate will drop. Doctor comes in, heart rate goes up. It was just kind of on and off. They end up giving me an oxygen mask. It was a little bit scary. But I mean, the nurses, especially the doctor, she just really made me feel like this is not a big deal. We're watching it. Everything's cool. So that really helped a lot. So again, this kind of keeps going on and off. I get the oxygen mask off because things seem fine. And then again, the heart rate's dipping again. So, okay, we're going to put it back on. And at this point, I've had the Pitocin like a few hours ago, so I'm pretty dilated at this point. I think I was like 9 or something. And so I get to like 9.5, and the doctor's like, you know what? I think we should go ahead and do this. And, I'm just going to help spread things out a little bit, while you push, but, baby is kind of struggling. So I think this is something that we should go ahead and do. So again, the pushing, pretty easy, no pain or anything. And it didn't take long. But it turned out part of the problem, if not the entire problem, was that baby was sunny side up. Baby was not facing the right way. For those who don't know, you want baby facing posteriorly, facing down, like you're towards your back, right? Instead of like in front. And baby was facing in front. And yeah, so when they came out, they had this weird little like divot on their head, That's likely what the problem was. It just makes it a lot harder for them to get out. When they were struggling, they were probably lower in the birth canal. And so when I was moving and shifting at certain points, it was just making it harder, for them to breathe. I did have a little bit of tearing because of that, TMI, but it's a birth story. Of course, I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, I did have some 2nd degree tearing, not a big deal. It's funny. I have this lovely picture of me. It's actually probably my favorite picture of me. I hate almost every single picture I have of me. There's one with my toddler that's very similar to this, actually. It's when my toddler's a little bit older, probably about, I don't know, a month or so. And then this one with tiny baby. And I just look so I look so nice in it. And baby looks all cheesy and gross because they're still all waxy, you know, from the vernix, whatever it's called, the stuff that they're covered in the womb. But yeah, I look so nice. And like my family, when I sent the picture, they were like, how are you so beautiful? You just gave birth and you're so beautiful. I was like, drugs, dude. But yeah, it's funny when that picture was actually taken, I'm like being sewn up. The doctor's down there just like sewing up, you know, my vagina. I mean, not sewing up the vagina, but you know what I mean. There's tears going on and she's just sewing me up. So that was the delivery. Had some bumps, but overall pretty easy. And, you know, the epidural wears off pretty quickly. I get moved to my recovery room, which I was worried about because with toddler, the delivery room was very nice. The recovery room was some bullshit. It was tiny. There was no room for like anyone. The bathroom was like, you know, it's just real dated and kind of gross, you know, not dirty or anything, but you know what I mean. When stuff's really dated, it just kind of looks gross. And it was just so small. So I was a little bit worried. Well, I should not have worried because this room was awesome. It was humongous. In fact, when they rolled me in, they were like, oh, you get the good room. I was like, what? Hell yeah. Like it was so ridiculously large and just really nice. They had like a pull-out bed. And of course, like this is when my partner's not staying with me the whole time, which they did with toddler. They were in the hospital the entire time with me. And this time I'm by myself. So it's like, okay, we're not even going to use the pull-out bed or anything, you know. Pretty typical recovery. Probably the most, absolutely the most painful part was the contractions. You know, the uterus is contracting for a while, a few days afterwards. And those first 24 hours or so, man, it's just really, really, really intense cramps. And I have intense cramps, you know, just normally anyway. It's the main reason why I take birth control because it helps that significantly. And this was really bad. I was taking a lot of ibuprofen and it barely made a dent. So that was fun. But yeah, pretty typical recovery. I was able to get out of there about, 48 hours. So that was nice. One thing that was super nice, the food. I know, hospital food, and for a vegan. What? When we first got into the room, actually the delivery room, my partner was looking through the menu and they were like, whoa, they have vegan stuff. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I just thought he was joking. I was like, okay, whatever. He was like, look. And so we're looking at it and all this stuff has little V's next to it. Number one, the hospital I was at for toddler had no menu. They literally just brought you up food 3 times a day and we would have to go, no, thank you. And they're like, okay, we'll go give it, to another room. They didn't throw it out or anything, which is good. But yeah, I mean, I had to, we had to bring food up. My mom had to bring us, food up to the hospital, right? I was drinking lots of Soylent. That was really helpful. So to actually have a menu and to actually have a bunch of vegan stuff on it was incredible. It wasn't just like one thing. It wasn't just like, oh, you get a bagel and like oatmeal and a salad and that's it. No, they had tofu. One of the dishes, I think the only thing I remember to take a picture of was this like kind of Southwestern style thing with some tofu, and it was actually really good. I also had this wrap that had some sort of mock meat in it. For breakfast I had like oatmeal and they had peanut butter and fruit, like typical vegan stuff. But for them to also have tofu and even some mock meats, I think they had a like vegan veggie burger too, was so crazy. So I was actually able to stay satisfied just by ordering, the room service in the hospital. What? So that was terrific. Again, being alone with just baby was actually really nice. Number one, the nurses did not interrupt. Dang it. Speaking of interrupt, wow, that's incredible timing. The nurses did not interrupt nearly as often as the nurses at the hospital where toddler was born. Oh my God, it seemed like it was every 30 minutes. Healthcare Triage has a video on how it's impossible to sleep in hospitals. And yeah, absolutely. But with this hospital, it seemed like they were better, I don't know, organized or something. There were times where it went like a few hours where no one came in. What? Like that never happened at the other hospital in Memphis. So that was really, really awesome. I was actually able to get some sleep, not a whole lot, but the first time, number one, with toddler, I was way, way, way anxious, and any sound they made, it was like, oh my God, are they dying? So that made it really, really hard to sleep. And they don't like taking babies to nurseries anymore because the whole thing is you're supposed to be with them the whole time, which is great unless you're sleep deprived and you feel awful, So My partner actually got them to take them to the nursery, but they would only do it for like 2 hours, which, okay, that's useful. So yeah, I got like no sleep. I think I got a few hours of sleep in the hospital the first time. But this time with tiny baby, I actually got way more sleep. Still like not enough, but way more, so I wasn't absolutely dead by the time I got home. Being less anxious helped a lot too. Baby making noises, it's like, okay, I know that's fine, so I was actually able to sleep comfortably, with baby in the room, no problem. And just, again, having that alone time was actually very, very nice. Partner came up with our kid, with toddler, to come and say hi, which was so sweet. Oh my God. Our kid is so sweet. So sweet to tiny baby. So yeah, they would come up, for a couple hours and then leave again. But yeah, for the most part, I was just kind of hanging out, and the nurses would come in and like, check blood pressure, take the baby's temperature, do the hearing test for baby, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was actually nice. I mean, look, I still want to go home. Like, it was still like, when they say, okay, you'll probably go home today at 11, it's like, please let that be the case. Because with toddler, I think they said also like 11 o'clock, and it wasn't until like 4 or something that we actually got out of there, which sucked. This time it was actually pretty close. I think it was like noon. I mean, I was absolutely ready to go home, but it was overall a much better experience. So yeah, I guess the only thing left to really talk about, elephant in the room kind of deal, postpartum depression, which I have a whole video on that. I had it with my first with toddler, and it was very, very shitty. And so I talked about anticipating having it this time, kind of expecting to have it, honestly, even though I am on antidepressants, kind of expecting it to happen. And oh my God, I have not had any symptoms of postpartum depression. I cannot believe it. I think there are a lot of reasons for that, honestly. I think number one, being on antidepressants. Number two, not being so insanely sleep deprived probably helped. Number three, this not being my first kid, not feeling that anxiousness at all, and that kind of, I never worried that like, oh, how am I going to do this? I'm going to do this wrong. I never worried like that. It was just always worrying that something terrible was going to happen, to baby, to me, to my partner, something like that. I didn't have that at all this time, which I think really, really helped as well. Battery died, but I think what I was saying was that, not having that newness of like, oh my God, I went from just me and really just taking care of myself. And like, yeah, I've had pets before, but obviously it's not the same thing, to like, oh my God, I have this baby that I'm responsible for now, and everything is totally different, and it's just weird. This time it's like, yeah, I've done this before. I did it not that long ago either, right? It's just not nearly as big of a change having a second kid versus having your first kid. And then the final thing is not breastfeeding, specifically not pumping. So unfortunately, I had the same exact thing happen that happened with toddler. Trying so hard to nurse in the hospital, never able to get a latch, and getting blistering pretty much immediately. For those who have never tried to nurse when your nipples are literally bleeding, imagine that you have a cut, like even just a tiny cut, just like a little paper cut on your finger or something, and someone is just scraping the paper cut like this over and over and over again. It's terrible. It is one of the worst things I've ever experienced. I know I said that the contractions were bad. No, this is so much worse. And just like with toddler, I was able to do it. I was able to do it for a while. I was able to do it in the hospital. I tried to keep doing it at home, and I just couldn't. And I kept trying to work on the latch, and I had the lactation consultant come and try to help me. For some reason, I think part of it is me. Number one, the size of my breasts make it hard to get into position in the first place. I can't just pop a kid on my boob. That's just not how it works. They're huge. So I have to get them in like position, and it takes for a while, whatever. And, the size of the nipple, all that kind of stuff, again, makes it a lot more difficult. But also my kids, they didn't have tongue tie or anything like that, but they just don't open their mouths very wide. And tiny baby is like even worse. Even feeding them with a bottle, sometimes they're so hungry and they'll just barely open their mouth. Like they never do that. Whenever you watch videos of like, this is how you latch, you see these kids and it's like their jaws unhinge. Like what the hell? My kids never ever did that. So trying to get them to latch on a pretty giant thing, just, I don't even know if it's physically possible. I think I was able to do it with toddler. This was actually a little while after I had quit and I was pumping. I was like, well, maybe I can try again. And I was able to do it and it didn't hurt. I mean, I talked about this, I think, like the feeling was still awful. Like, I don't know, kind of like restless leg syndrome is the only way I can describe it. Not painful, but just like, just really awful. But it didn't hurt like that. It wasn't that scraping, pulling feeling when you have like a really shallow latch. I don't know. I think that's part of the problem. They just don't open their damn mouths. So it's just impossible to make it work, to get a really, really deep latch. I don't know, maybe there's some other thing I could have tried, but as I've talked about before, breastfeeding is better, but it's not that much better. It's just not. And very likely the main benefit comes from the first few weeks and just in terms of immune benefits from breastfeeding. So, again, baby did get the colostrum in the hospital. And that's the thing too. It's like the universe hates me. I'm actually a really good producer. And you think like, oh, well, you have huge titties. Of course you are. But actually that doesn't have anything to do with how much you produce because it's milk ducts. It's not like the tissue is producing milk, right? But anyway, I am like a really, really good producer. And so to not be able to get a latch and to breastfeed and to nurse is just so stupid. But anyway, as I've talked about before with toddler, I did pump for a long time, mostly exclusively for a really, really long time. And then I think, was it like 6 months? I think I went down to like half and half, pumping and half formula. And then by like 8 months, it's just like, I can't do this anymore. It's just awful. And trying to work as well because, the kind of work that I do where I'm writing notes. I mean, obviously this, I'm just talking, but most of the stuff I'm doing where I'm writing stuff down, a lot of it is like me getting into the zone and working and then having to stop because, I have to go get my pump hearts and set up and pump. It just completely breaks everything. And it makes it really, really hard to be productive. And I already struggle to be productive. I mean, you guys see how much I post and I go for phases where I'm not posting. It's already hard for me, honestly, to be productive. So knowing all of that and imagining myself having to pump again. In fact, that's the only time I felt like kind of severe depression was when I pulled out that pump. And it was like I had repressed everything. Pulling out that pump when I got home from the hospital, it's like everything came flooding back and I felt so incredibly sad. And the thought of having to, get up in the middle of the night and pump, even if baby slept through the night, to still have to get up. So, I never did the full like 8 to 12 times pumping a day, which you have to do to build up your supply in the first couple of weeks. You have to do that much. I never did that. I just did like 4 times and I was able to build up like a pretty good amount doing that just 4 times a day. So yeah, I did it for the first few weeks, I guess, using formula as well. Cause again, I wasn't doing the full like 8 to 12 and I would like stop cause I'd go, okay, I'm done with this. Like I'm gonna stop. And then of course I wouldn't pump and then my boobs would just hurt so bad. It's like, okay, I'll pump again. And then I'd produce a lot and it's like, oh, hey, this is nice. Maybe I'll keep going. So it was totally like, I couldn't decide if I wanted to keep doing it or I wanted to stop. And then because I kept going on and off, my boobs were just like, well, now you're done, right? So then I like wasn't producing very much. And it was like, okay, if I actually want to keep doing this, I have to do the full like 8 to 12 and I have to build it up again, And I was like, no, I can't. I like physically cannot do that. I will not be a functional human being if I have to do that. So yeah, we are fully on formula again after I think about 3 weeks. We just went to full formula. And it's crazy because I'm still actually producing milk. Like they say 7 to 10 days, bullshit, at least for me. Like it's not a lot at this point, but I'm still producing milk. Ridiculous. Although, when I'm pregnant, both times I started producing at like, I want to say like 20 weeks, something like that. I already started producing like some liquid. It's not milk, obviously. I guess it's just colostrum, early colostrum. It looks different. Like once you have baby, it turns and you are like constantly, nursing and like hand expressing and stuff, it turns like real yellow, you know? Whereas when I'm pregnant, it's more like a kind of clear, kind of liquidy stuff. Whatever, that's probably too much information. But point is, in terms of postpartum depression, I think not having to pump constantly probably helped as well. So yeah, a lot of different factors, you know, the meds, the not pumping, the being an experienced mom, not being super duper sleep deprived. I think all those things made the difference for me, and it's pretty great. The final thing I'll talk about has to do with baby. This is the stressful thing that I had, and this was the one thing that actually made me kind of break down and cry at one point. Not even kind of, I've actually absolutely did, just like sob. With toddler lost like barely any weight. You know, it's typical for babies to lose weight and to gain it back by about 2 weeks. Toddler barely lost any and gained it all back by their first appointment. So they were like 3 days old. So weight loss is not really something we've experienced at all. And toddler was always a really good eater. In fact, we had so much problems with them spitting up and even on some occasions essentially throwing up just like everything they ate. And that was really stressful for me because like, oh my God, they're not going to gain weight. You know, we bought a baby scale to see how much they weighed. You know, I was really stressed out about it because they would throw up like every time they ate. And they were just really, you know, we would have to stop them from eating because they would just keep going and then throw up. Tiny baby has been the complete opposite. Number one, lost quite a bit of weight. Now, I have learned that there's some discrepancy there because the way that they do it, which is they weigh baby immediately after a baby is born. The problem is that many women are getting IV fluid like me. And so part of that weight is extra fluid that baby is then going to pee out. So some researchers have argued that we should actually count the weight at about 24 hours, you know, when baby is 24 hours old, when all of that extra fluid is gone, that's actually the weight that we should be counting, which would mean that my baby actually didn't lose that much weight because when they weighed at 24 hours, they had already lost 5%, that's getting a little bit, I think once they get to 10%, it's like, okay, that's kind of a lot. But again, if you're counting that as the actual weight, then they haven't really lost anything, right? So I didn't learn that until later. And it's, you know, I don't know if that's 100% correct or not, but it seems to make a lot of sense. But anyway, so, you know, they're like, okay, baby's lost some weight, you know, just make sure that you're feeding them a lot and the hand expressing and all that kind of stuff. The problem, so in the hospital, you know, again, I'm nursing, even though it's awful and it's painful and there's blood, you know, I'm still nursing. And it was nice because tiny baby didn't seem to nurse as long, like at all. Like my toddler in the hospital, obviously they weren't a toddler at a time, but I'm trying to distinguish between the two, right? Toddler would nurse for like 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. It was really, really ridiculous. So I was like, okay, this baby must be just like a really good eater. You know, they'll just nurse a little bit and then fall asleep. Okay, cool. Well, no. So what I think was happening was, you know, again, my kids never got a really good latch, which means that it's a lot harder for them to get milk out, to get like enough, you know, or the colostrum in this case. So I think because toddler was such like a better eater, they would just take that extra time to make sure that they got enough, like until they were full, right? So it took them the full like 45 minutes to an hour, right? Because they didn't have that good latch. Well, tiny baby was like, no, I don't care that much. I'll just go hungry, basically. Like, I don't care about getting enough food. Fuck it. This is too much work. So as a consequence, they kept losing weight. And kept losing weight and kept losing weight. And yeah, so we had the first appointment. Baby was about like 5 days old and they had lost more weight. And it's like, okay, you know, doctor wasn't concerned or anything, but like keep an eye on it. And, you know, instead of waiting for 2 weeks, we'll have an in-between appointment just to check again. So a few days later, we have another appointment. And sure enough, they've lost more weight. And I think it was that appointment I told my partner that like I couldn't go to it. It's like, if I go to this appointment and they've lost more weight, I'm going to lose it. I'm just going to break down. Again, I said this is what made me cry the night before I stayed up with baby and was just crying, you know, even though doctor wasn't concerned. This was uncharted territory for us, and you can't help babies not eating enough. Like, you can't help but be like, oh my God, they're starving. Like, my baby's gonna starve to death. Partner came back, was like, yeah, baby lost more weight, but, you know, doctor's not concerned, and had some suggestions, maybe changing the bottle. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe we should change the nipple, you know, if this is too much work for them, because we were using the level 1, which is for, you know, little babies 0 to 3 months or something like that. I was like, maybe we should go to the level 2, which we already had. We had all of the bottles and stuff from, you know, toddlers. So it's like, maybe we should try level 2. And sure enough, like, immediately they ended up eating more than they had been. So it's like, oh my God, hallelujah. So that helped them get a little bit more food. But even still, by the 2-week appointment, I think it was, they were still, you know, not, I can't remember if they lost more weight or they just gained a little bit. So doctor was like, we should fortify, right? So we ended up fortifying. At this point, it was the breast milk, fortifying the breast milk with a little bit of extra formula. And that did the trick. And baby ended up reaching their birth weight by, I think it was about 3 weeks. And now they've been growing, you know, almost like an ounce a day or something like that. So they're doing better now. They're still not like still opposite of my toddler. They're just not a super big eater. You know, they still don't eat a whole lot in one sitting, which means that, you know, with toddler, because they would eat so much, we were able to do the whole dream feed thing, and able to get them sleeping through the night, 8 hours at 2 months. It was awesome. But with tiny baby, I don't think we're going to be able to do that for a while. You know, they're still waking up like every 3 hours at night to eat, because they just won't eat that much at a sitting, you know, which is fine. You know, I'm just glad that they're healthy and happy and, you know, getting bigger and chunkier, and they're smiling now. They're giving us real smiles, which I forgot how magical that is. It is just, oh my God. It's the most amazing thing, seeing your kid smile at you for the first time, because it's so obvious when it's a real smile, and it's, oh my God. I guess that's it. It's been a thing, but mostly boring birth story, other than the, you know, cholestasis and it's weird saying like, oh, that's not boring, like it's fun or something. Like, yeah, that made it fun, you know. No, it just made it more of an adventure, I guess. Adventure is neutral, right? It's not necessarily positive, or is it positive? Whatever. I need to stop doing this though, because postpartum hair loss. Oh no, it's happening. I've been waiting for it. I mean, the good thing is I'm not totally bewildered by it and like surprised by it like I was with toddler, because I think I read about it while I was pregnant, but it wasn't something that stayed with me, because it was like, okay, well, that's going to happen after baby was born, right? Because I was just focused on like making sure everything was good and knowing everything I needed to know for labor, all that kind of stuff. So it just left my mind. And then honestly, I think I didn't notice, and I don't even know if I ever would have noticed if it weren't for this, if it weren't for editing videos, because I don't really look at myself in the mirror a lot or anything. Pretty sure I was editing a video and was like, wait, something looks off. I think because I had my hair parted, and it was like, because you usually lose around the temples, and that's where I lose, like right around here. And I just noticed like, that looks like, that's not how my hair usually looks, right? And sure enough, I paid attention when I took a shower, and wow, there was a lot of hair coming out. So that was really depressing. But this time I've been kind of waiting for it, and the last, like a few days ago, I was in the shower and was like, okay, this is more hair. This is more hair than usual. So, you know, trying not to get too bummed out. It sucks though. So if you see me wearing hats in the future, if you see me wearing a hat in the video, that's why. And who knows, if it gets really bad, because it might be worse this time. You know, it wasn't super terrible last time. It could be worse this time, because I don't know. I think my hair grew back almost fully, but I think I'm still like, wait, which side is it? I'm trying to think in the mirror. Is it this side? I think this side is still, it's still a little less full than it used to be. I mean, I've never had like super full hair. It's kind of thin, I guess. But I think this side didn't quite fill in as much as it should have, but I don't really know for sure. But yeah, so it's possible that I lose a lot and it doesn't all come back. And oh my God. So yeah, if you see hats, you know what's going on. If I shave my head, who knows? If it's really bad, I might just shave my head, which there's like, look at my face. I do not have the face. I do not have the face for a shaved head. In my heart, I look awesome. I look like Sigourney Weaver in Alien 3, but I know that's not it at all. And it's going to be frightening. But, yeah, that's a possibility that I just shave my head and I get a freaking awesome wig. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, that's super cool. Support the channel, patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. And I will have a new video very soon.